So how do you gain assurance of salvation? I think for me, what really was difficult was in college. I felt like I was wrestling with my assurance of salvation. Just how do I know I'm really saved? How do I know I really believe? How do I know I've really repented? How do I know that I've really asked God for forgiveness or prayed the right prayer or things like that, right? And so I think there was an emphasis on whether I did the right thing or didn't do the right thing or jump through the right hoops, if you will, to be saved. But ultimately, the reality of salvation is just that Jesus did these things, and that is what we trust in. We trust, namely that Christ died and resurrected for us, and that He paid the penalty for our sin. Obviously, I don't just mentally assent to that fact and just accept that factoid and say, "Oh, well, I've heard that, and I think that is true." But there is something more profound that happens with actually trusting in Christ and you owning your faith. So I think over time there is assurance of salvation. I was mentioning to someone before how for people who have no background in Christianity and then they become Christians and sometimes have very radical experiences of life change, for them there is not much concern about assurance of salvation because the change they experience is so astronomical. Whereas for many Christians who grew up in church, maybe we don't really know when we came to faith in Christ. Maybe it was kind of over like a progression of time, and then we just don't really know when we cross that line of faith. But I would say over time, the assurance of salvation doesn't necessarily come from you, because I think it's so easy for us to kind of look at our good deeds or lack of good deeds and then say, oh, it looks like we're saved, or today it looks like I'm not saved. So I would say the assurance of salvation has very little to do with you, but mainly trusting in Jesus for your salvation and to the degree to which you're trusting in his sacrifice for you.
Keep it dank.